Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Next Gen Cloud Security webinar. My name is Nick O'Donovan. I'm a Senior Systems Engineer with VMware, and I work with our VMware Cloud Provider Program. Today, I'll be co-presenting with William Bell of phoenixNAP. phoenixNAP is a cloud provider and a VMware partner. Going to be handing this over to William Bell. He is the VP of Product at phoenixNAP. And today we're going to be talking about a subject which is on top of most people's minds today, which is security in the cloud. So William, go ahead, introduce yourself and get us started.
Thank you very much, Nick. I want to thank everybody for coming today. We have a really exciting presentation. And we're really going to try to mix in some education for you guys and try to understand what the landscape looks like today from a cloud security perspective, from an on-prem security perspective, and wrap it up with how we think at phoenixNAP that we can help. We're so excited about what we've been building over the last year with our partners at VMware and Intel. And so we're going to kick it off. And my marketing team definitely wanted me to tell everybody that we are going to be doing a giveaway at the end for people that stay to the end. So nice Kindle Paperwhite. So if you could hang out, hopefully the presentation will be interesting enough to make you do so. But if not, stay around for the Kindle Paperwhite. So the title of our presentation today is a little on the scary side, right? Is your be operating inside of your environment? And we are looking at some different ways that we can help protect the environment that you're operating from these new age threats. And some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about is going to be heavily based on some network security features that we're able to deploy with our partners at Intel and VMware, and preparing the market for what we truly believe is going to be a next generation secure infrastructure as a service product line. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time and talk about why things are a little bit broken. And so I am hearing that the audio is cutting in and out, hopefully not for everyone. And hopefully that's better. So what we're looking at right now is a traditional network infrastructure and network protection technologies are not sufficient. And the reason that we're seeing this is because once an intrusion has happened on your network and the attacker has gotten past your traditional corporate firewalls, there's really not a lot in the way of moving through your most critical assets. Some of you have taken some time to prevent or detect some of these attacks, but what we find is that although statistically a majority of the traffic and critical communications happen on your network between critical systems, not between you and the internet, the protection mechanisms that people are employing are severely degraded once you move inside of the network. And so I'm going to walk through some examples in a little bit and talk about places where customers thought they were well protected or people thought they were well protected from internet-based attacks, and what they found was that they are often very much not as protected as they think they are. So what are we looking at with our customers today? So we're looking at, as we kind of profile the majority of the ways that attackers are investigating or attacking your infrastructure. The majority of what we see on our in our service lines is reconnaissance missions. Effectively, attackers are trying to penetrate your network from the outside, and then once they get inside, they're trying to move around constantly to try to find some type of critical data. And often, what attackers have become very good at is what we call pivoting. So they get inside your network, then they move to, they can't access very much from that first system, but they get to one other system, and that system has access to a lot of critical information. And so that's where this lateral movement piece comes in, right? And what you constantly hear about is the intrusion occurred over a period of time. And the reason that is the case is because a lot of times with more complex networks, it takes a really long time to understand where critical information is. And they're placing command and control systems in your environments so that they can come back later and access that infrastructure without any real heavy level of effort. And if you're not able to either block and defend against that type of communication or detect it, you're going to be in some serious trouble over time. And so I wanted to walk through a few of the ways that we see attacks occurring, but also what some of these real-world costs look like for some of these businesses. And obviously these are estimated, but I would venture to say that very often the estimations are low. A lot of times they're tied to number of records that are exposed, or they may be gleaned from financial statements that are made to the public. But a lot of times we find that businesses are underreporting the impact to their bottom line, mostly because they don't want to exacerbate the situation. And what we find is the common thread along all of the kind of examples I'm going to walk through is that the attackers were in that environment for a very long time. And very often, basic levels of network access control would have prevented a major breach. And we all understand why, the internal network access control is a little bit looser than the external network access control. And the reason for that is kind of based on what I mentioned earlier. When we see 80% of the traffic occurring internally, it becomes very, very hard to maintain traditional access control lists. And I'm going to talk about some of the ways that we can help with that, and our partners at VMware with their technologies like NSX can help with that, as we kind of walk throughout this presentation. So everybody's aware of what happened to Sony, or should be aware of what happened to Sony. This is, what I call an all-out breach. Effectively, every major system they had, from movie production to internal communications and email systems, was exposed. And most likely due to extremely understaffed or underprepared security teams at Sony Pictures, because nearly everything they had was compromised as an organization, and a ton of moving between system to system to system to accomplish that full breach. What we saw with Target was a pretty amazing story and very common in retail today. For those of you that don't know, Target effectively had an external third-party HVAC company that was monitoring their critical environment across their stores, and they gave this HVAC company external network credentials to be able to remote into their environments to run monitoring systems. Once those credentials were compromised, attackers were able to not only access the network externally and access all the stores externally, but were also not restricted once they got there. They were able to quickly move between this VPN destination, or this monitoring system, and tons of other systems, including the point-of-sale systems for each and every store. And over a period of time, they infected nearly every POS system that Target had. And that's why they were able to compromise so many credit cards. So basic protections at a network level would have prevented this type of occurrence. Understanding that the system that they needed to access externally from that third-party provider was the only system that it should be able to access. And from that monitoring system to the HVAC and power systems was the only system that they should be able to access, could have prevented the entire thing. And there's tons of reasons for why this occurs that we're going to talk about, but either no one bothered to place any type of access control kind of behind the perimeter from a network perspective, or more likely they had something in place, but over time those policies became outdated, systems changed, networks changed, and all of a sudden that one system somehow had access to tons of things in the environment. Everyone has gone through that at one point in their business if you're running critical IT, network infrastructure, or security departments. So this ended up costing their business, at least from an external perspective, around $270 million. It's unknown what this really did to the brand trust. Potentially because they're a retail company, it had a much reduced impact. But if you operate in a critical business-to-business environment, it becomes very easy sometimes for you to lose a majority of your customers very quickly due to these types of breaches. We saw, once again, payment terminals being attacked at Home Depot, millions of dollars. And this one's kind of interesting. In Auburn, Indiana, there was a hospital that suffered from ransomware that was extremely intensive and took out basically all of their critical systems in an emergency environment. So, what we're looking at in this type of environment is systems that you think are protected very often aren't, or you're so overwhelmed with this type of providing this type of security that you just aren't able to keep up with it. And so we're going to talk about some of the ways that we can help with that. This is invariably what we find in most of our customers' environment. And Nick, maybe you can talk a little bit about this and what you see at VMware in terms of internal network security versus perimeter defense.
Exactly, yeah. So what we see is obviously very little time has been paid to these what we call these east-west threats. And I know you're going to talk about that in a little more detail further on in the presentation. But a lot of time has been spent, a lot of time and money has been spent on perimeter firewalls, protecting the perimeter. And as you mentioned earlier on, once someone gains access into the network, they pretty much then will jump from computer or server to server, looking for these vulnerabilities. Really the point here is, perimeter protection is really not going to be enough for the environment. We really need to look at something a little more in depth than that.
Absolutely, Nick, and that's something that we can't stress enough. And really trying to identify your most critical systems and understanding where they're at, being able to place business security rules around those applications is way better, or a much more robust way of defending these applications from a network perspective versus attaching some type of arbitrary IP address to it, sticking on a legacy VLAN and saying, okay, I've got this IP-based rule, and it doesn't matter. In 5 years, you may change your whole network out, and the network ACLs don't really modify along with it. And now you've got a system that you thought was protected that's now completely exposed to everything else on your network, even if it isn't exposed to the internet. A lot of people have external network scanning running today. Anyone who has to follow PCI should be doing some type of external vulnerability scanning. But it is, the amount of internal scanning that's happening is absolutely not on par with what's happening from an external perspective. So, I don't love these type of slides, but effectively, when the question is asked, are you at risk, or from your business to you that's running this IT infrastructure comes and asks you, the answer is invariably yes. The question that we are trying to solve for is, how much are you at risk? right? What types of things are you doing to protect yourself today, right? And so we see that that customers are basically holding on to data that which value far exceeds the amount of money that they're spending on protecting that infrastructure. And that becomes a problem from multiple angles. It becomes a staffing problem, it becomes a technical security problem, and an investment problem from the business perspective. And very often what we find is that the technical teams are not in sync with the business about how best to accomplish some of these goals. And based on the data that we've been able to collect with our partners, we're seeing as many as 2 successful attacks each week against most businesses that have something worth attacking. Again, the question is, what does that mean? What ultimately is the outcome that is occurring from these types of attacks? And if you get to the point where you're losing some type of PII record or credit card, it can be extremely costly to your business, right? So everyone's been trying to boil it down over years. The number that's very commonly thrown out is $200 per record. The reference that we're making here to 221 is definitely in line. And for those of you that have hundreds of thousands or millions of people's information, that can start to add up extremely quickly. So I think that they were going to do a poll here. I don't know if the engineers are going to do that, but if you're not concerned about east-west threats, I would say that you probably should get on board. And if they throw out that poll, I'll definitely mention it as we kind of move by. One interesting piece of data that we've gotten from Forrester is that 77% of businesses tell an analyst that they have no confidence in the techniques that they've deployed, which is bad from 2 perspectives. First off, they have problems that they're not able to fix for whatever reason. But even with the confidence to tell someone else that they can't fix it, they don't have any plans to actually approach these problems and try to solve them. Although security becomes, it continues to be top of mind for CIOs. Anytime you read basic top 5 concerns reports from analysts, security is always 1 or 2. But what we find is that the investment continues to drag significantly. So as you look at this next generation network security and cloud, secure cloud infrastructure as a service, what if you could really look at everything in your environment? If you could place logical security controls around not only the perimeter of your business and or your distributed business, if you own or you operate a company that has stores or field locations everywhere, but also at the application level, right? So imagine a world where things like traditional network architecture wasn't your limitation for how you could accomplish securing that infrastructure. And you could do so with a single pane of glass for both your on-prem infrastructure and the cloud infrastructure. And that's truly where we're working with Intel and VMware to try to get to, is where customers in a hybrid world, which most would agree that we're headed towards, would be able to control all of this network security and the policies and the groups and the application, granular application security, and have it move around with the application versus just being limited to some type of traditional network segment. And make most of this truly automated, right? So think about having a payment application that has to follow PCI controls, and being able to introduce systems into that payment application group or into that payment application architecture without having to recreate the wheel from a security policy perspective. You can say, okay, I want this virtual machine put in this group, part of my payment application, and by default, there's a security policy applied to it. And that security policy can be as granular as you could potentially even imagine. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how some of this granular network security it looks like in this kind of next generation NSX-based world. So we look at a description that we call secure by design. You're able to create network security policies that can truly protect you from lateral movement in an environment. They can, you can actually move critical workloads from on-prem to the cloud and have the policies that you've created follow those virtual machines as they move out into this somewhat unknown or externally controlled environment. And really be able to show someone like an auditor all of the policies that you've created that are logical to your application and have the security and compliance audits from a network perspective be nearly automated for you. So some of you might be familiar with the concept of zero trust. Zero trust is something that has been around as a security tenet for a very long time. However, it's most traditionally the most difficult thing to accomplish in the security world. Some of you have seen some type of implementations of this over the years. They'll sound like, outbound and inbound ACLs, right, which are very uncommon. Everyone's kind of protecting the inbound. Application whitelisting. Technologies like this are critical to trying to get to this perspective of zero trust, but they typically come with an extreme admin overhead that's associated with that type of security model. And so everything you can do to provide business level context to your network security policies, to your system security policies, and be able to secure that infrastructure on a per application basis, who accesses it, what type of data is in there, and what type of policies are applied to it, can revolutionize your security posture as a business. And that's some of the things that we're helping to create for our customers that are looking at our cloud services, and specifically an announcement that we made a few days ago with our new data security cloud. So as we look at next generation cloud infrastructure, it's important to understand the differences that a infrastructure as a service company that's operating with a secure by design practice can bring to your business. There's a lot of ways to consume cloud infrastructure. You can go to one of the hyperscalers and take the complete DIY approach. There's a lot of help that can be gained out there, but typically you're on your own, right? You're on your own to implement these type of policies. They're not very hybrid by nature, right? Very proprietary infrastructure. And there's zero way for you to take the work that you're putting into your on-prem environment if you're adopting technologies like VMware NSX and apply it to a cloud environment. And that's something that as we build out our data security cloud practice, we're going to be working with our customers to help them accomplish, where you can truly extend your environment from your on-prem to any one of our 6 global locations and have that security policy framework follow you and follow your application as you move it in and out of cloud infrastructure resources. So what we hope to get out of this as well is an extreme admin overhead decrease for our customers. Not only from the value proposition of cloud-based infrastructure, right, where you're able to go and consume nearly the same way or potentially the exact same way as you consume resources on-prem, but be able to do that with some type of operational expense. But past that, be able to look to someone like pNAP that has a dedicated security team that's able to help you understand what you need to do with your application, how to deploy your policies, and how to get to a more automated security posture so that you can reduce that admin overhead, but also help eliminate a lot of the errors that come from constant configuration management in these environments. And lastly, really help you get that time to market for your IT business, right? A lot of times you're working under deadlines from different departments that need resources, need applications deployed. And if you do it right, if you actually work hard to secure those applications, but you're leveraging legacy network infrastructure and application infrastructure protection technologies, it can take a really, really long time for you to be able to deploy those apps. So one of the things that we've been working on since we started our business in 2010 was trying to find ways to help our customers get a lower total cost of ownership by trying to reduce our total cost of ownership, right? So looking at ways to deploy technologies like NSX with microsegmentation, like the vRealize operations suite, and critical security technologies from Intel, and help us automate and save time and reduce the expenses that we see in operating a cloud infrastructure business, and by proxy translate that into a severe savings for our customers versus the do-it-yourself approach for sure, but also other cloud infrastructure vendors out there. And what we're trying to accomplish with the launch of our data security cloud is to be able to give you these types of secure by design technologies without it coming at an extreme cost to your business. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we can help show some of that. But what we truly believe is that there are ways to consume cloud infrastructure in a much more secure fashion than what most of you are looking at today from a public cloud IaaS perspective, and take advantage of the investments that you've made as a business in network security and infrastructure, and have them work truly in tandem, like a marriage between your cloud infrastructure and your on-prem infrastructure. And Nick, I'd love for you to comment on VMware's picture of hybrid IT and kind of where that's going. And maybe that'll give some context around what at least VMware thinks the future is going to look like from a hybrid perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks, William. So obviously, as you mentioned earlier, we think of the the hybrid cloud as living between a private cloud and a public cloud, right? And really, where we see things going is greater mobility with these workloads across clouds, right? And it could be a VMware cloud, or it could be another cloud. And the whole goal or the vision is that the security policy follows that VM, right? So no matter where that VM is, the security policy that is attached to that VM, firewall rules, etc., that will follow the VM now across and through the cloud, and obviously through the hybrid cloud.
Absolutely, and that's the vision that pNAP has for this cloud-forward future, right? Where businesses are able to take their static workloads, the capital that they have that can be invested in that type of infrastructure, and or maybe the most critical things that a company continues to operate those environments on-prem, hopefully in a data center somewhere versus truly in an office, but operate in the virtual on-prem and try to extend those workloads into a public cloud environment. One of the things that's lost very often as we look towards cloud consumption is how to control the cost of consuming cloud infrastructure. And a lot of people look at the purely consumption-based models out there and forget some basic tenets of economics. Yes, there is a savings in scale, right? The largest public cloud vendors out there can save money over other MSPs and small CSPs in the cost of the infrastructure that they're operating. But I would charge you to look at some of that in depth, or as in depth as you can, and try to understand that those deltas are not as large as they would lead you to believe. Truly, the total cost of ownership of consuming public cloud and the security technologies that are deployed in public cloud have to be looked at seriously. And customers that take their infrastructure and wholesale move them to public cloud environments often find out that public cloud resources, although they may seem inexpensive on the surface, operating them 24/7, 100% of the time, using a reasonable amount of bandwidth, deploying security technologies, and then finding specialists that can maintain that infrastructure for you, right, and actually consult with you about the different options you have to provide a secure by design implementation framework for adoption of public cloud becomes very costly. And I wanted to kind of expand on that one specifically a little bit. What we see with our customers, at PNAP, we're a hybrid infrastructure as a service company. So we see customers that only consume our data center resources in various locations. And some of them are large consumers of public cloud. And what we find with those customers of ours is that they very often end up employing specialist third-party companies to help them maintain that infrastructure, whether it's from a security perspective or a monitoring perspective. And in that venture, they've got new problems that they're trying to solve. They've got multiple vendors managing the same infrastructure that need to talk to each other. It's hard to get one answer from them. They have two or more people trying to get their profit out of the same infrastructure that you've had for years. You've got Amazon or Azure taking their cut. You've got an MSP practice that's monitoring everything or performing some type of managed service on top of the specialized infrastructure taking their cut. And then you may have some type of advanced consultant service, again, very specific to the proprietary implementation technologies that are available in the hyperscalers, and they take their cut. And by the time each one of these independent organizations gets their pound of flesh, you end up spending a lot more money, potentially even more money than you spent when you were doing everything yourself. Sure, you were able to consume it via some type of OpEx or subscription payment, but the total cost of ownership over time becomes severe. And very often, for nothing but lack of investigation, the vendors like PNAP and our cohorts, the large-scale providers that are not hyperscalers, they're overlooked in this cloud journey because the customer believes they're chasing a cost of an infrastructure resource, a cost per vCPU or cost per gigabyte of RAM. And very often the total cost of ownership goes out the window. So as we created our data security cloud offer, we have been pouring resources into not only providing some unique security technologies that are unavailable elsewhere in the world, but also doing it in a very cost-effective way with a single vendor approach that you can leverage to help operate your business in the cloud from a security perspective and management infrastructure perspective. So we want to help you get these granular security policies applied to your applications, help them scale your business. Obviously, we're going to bypass a ton of legacy infrastructure choices and really help you consume a secure IaaS platform and lower the amount that you're spending on OpEx if you are adopting a public cloud today. But also, if you're spending capital still, we're going to try to eliminate that the same way that you would look for someone like Amazon or Azure to do so. So a few things that we're doing as we try to help our customers get on board. We're going to work with you and your business to sit down and understand the ways that you can consume the infrastructure resources that we're deploying on your behalf, the security technologies that are at your disposal that are going to become even more robust over time, and really help roll out these security policies throughout your infrastructure in our cloud service, heavily reduce, if not eliminate, all of the CapEx that you're seeing today, and try to reduce that IT operations overhead. Not reduce IT headcount, just the operations overhead that's keeping you from doing something else with those people. And create logical security policies that make sense for your business. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're going to make that even more special for the people that are on the call today. I threw in the slide at the end because I thought it was very pertinent. Everything we've talked about today is this microcosm of Equifax, right? Equifax had so many problems that have been, beleaguered in the media, but it truly came down to a few very basic things: poor perimeter defense, poor patching policies, right? And then the most critical one that we've been harping on throughout this webinar is they got to, they had this system that was insecure, it was unpatched, it was sitting on the internet, and that was the breach infection point. But that's not where that was not the system that was compromised. It had everyone in the world's data on it. It was a back-end system much behind that perimeter system that was actually infected. And attackers took their time to get to that information, and they were on their network infrastructure for months before before they were ever detected. And that's something that we're trying extremely hard with our new data security cloud to help prevent from ever happening. And if you come back and follow along as we add some more webinars in the future, we're really going to get granular and show you how we're taking some of these concepts that I've talked about today, and we're applying them to our secure cloud infrastructure service, and how you can leverage them as you look to move towards a more secure cloud environment in the future. So, I think that if you haven't read some of the press that's been generated announcing the launch of the phoenixNAP Data Security Cloud, I wanted to take a minute really just to talk about the time that's gone into developing something like this. For the last 9 months, we've been collaborating with Intel and VMware to bring what we believe over time will become the most secure cloud infrastructure service in the world. And we're doing a lot under the hood to ensure that the environment's not only highly secure or secure by design from a infrastructure perspective, but also how we can expose different technologies that you can leverage with your applications, and then eventually truly outsource the security operations that you're doing today for your business. The stuff that no one wants to do from a SOC perspective to help you maintain your security posture, we really believe that we can solve a lot of those challenges. and provide all of that with one partner in PNAP that's bringing the best of breed technologies to bear, giving you a self-service environment to consume them, and being your right-hand man when it comes to security and infrastructure as a service. Right? We're deploying this only in the United States today, but as we continue to evolve the policy frameworks, the compliance frameworks, you're going to see this infrastructure service roll out across the globe, across the 6 locations we have, and any more that we add in that time frame. And we really hope that you guys will come talk to us, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can get in touch with us and look to learn how we can help you transform your business from a security infrastructure as a service perspective. So how do you get started, right? So the slides that we're showing today are going to be delivered via email in the next couple of days. So we'll have this information on it. It's fairly easy. One of the hallmarks of PNAP's business is the ability to have a flexible approach to doing business with us. You can call us, you can chat with us, you can email us, and we're really going to sit down with you and try to understand what you're trying to accomplish and position the best fit infrastructure as a service. And if security is one of your top of mind projects, or security in the cloud specifically, we're going to sit down and provide you a complimentary network security assessment, an infrastructure assessment, only for the people that have come to the webinar today that are looking to get a buddy check of their environment. Even if they're not ready to consume a cloud service today, we're willing to put forth the effort to help you take a look at what you're doing and talk a little bit about the model that you're looking to consume. So we'll sit down with you and we'll build a total cost of ownership model that makes sense and compare it to what other options you have in the market or to the do-it-yourself approach that you may have been doing for a while. And if you like what you have to hear, we'll set you up with a 30-day proof of concept of our data security cloud product line and talk with you a little bit about the evolution and the journey that we're on from a secure cloud infrastructure perspective, and really try to show you how we're going to be there for you as a partner across a long period of time to help you secure your business. And with that, I want to do some Q&A, and then I'm going to give away the Kindle Paperwhite as well. If you want to throw it in the question and answers box on the left, I'll be willing to take them up. Give everybody a minute to take. All right. So somebody asked, if people are looking for a completely private cloud environment, are they going to be able to take advantage of some of the features? The answer is absolutely. So although our focus for this webinar and applying security controls in a multi-tenant environment have been what we've been working on for the last 9 months and are so critical, because what we find is that customers, the majority of businesses out there, need the cost metrics of a multi-tenant environment to really make cloud infrastructure as a service make sense to their business. But the technologies that we're deploying and the frameworks that we are building can be layered onto our managed private cloud product line. And in fact, we're leveraging a ton of these technologies today prior to our announcement of DSC and the general availability next month. We've taken a lot of the technologies that we're leveraging in Data Security Cloud, and we've been rolling them out to private cloud customers for a long time, and really trying to get to a point where we're able to provide private cloud management, infrastructure as a service, and security infrastructure frameworks in a completely single tenant environment. So if you're interested in a completely single tenant environment and that's what you feel like you need for your business for whatever reason, our guys will definitely be able to talk to you about that.
Yeah, and William, just to add to that, one of the great things about when we talk about the hybrid cloud is if your private cloud is security ready, it makes that transition when you need to move workloads into the public cloud or the hybrid cloud. It obviously makes that transition a whole lot easier.
Nick, that's a really great point. That if you come to pNAP to consume a single tenant infrastructure as a service product like our managed private cloud, and we work together to deploy security frameworks like NSX by default and apply these policies to your applications, it makes either an extension to a multi-tenant environment, a solution like disaster recovery as a service to some type of multi-tenant environment, or even a complete transition in the future once the technologies are at a place where you feel the trust that you need to be able to save some money by moving into a multi-tenant cloud offering. You can just pick up and move, right, in a fashion that is completely impossible from a adoption of public cloud perspective today. Someone else asked if there was a product brochure. Absolutely. If you reach out to sales@phoenixNAP.com or give us a call, those guys will be able to give you guys a product brochure. We have some customers right now in beta that we've moved into the environment, and we'll be adopting it over the next month. And we look to go live towards the end of November from a general availability perspective. But in that time period, we can start looking at whether or not the service would meet your needs, and what you're doing today to get your infrastructure protected, and try to understand what it would look like leveraging the data security cloud for your business, and the myriad of other technologies and services that we have at pNAP that can help you accomplish things that you may not have known that we're able to do as a business. So look forward to reaching out, sales@phoenixNAP.com, and they'll take care of that as well. All right. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and give out the Kindle Paperwhite. 1 second here.
Yeah, and William, just before you do that, it looks like there's
Of
another
course.
question there.
Right.
Someone's asking who they should reach out to for the managed public cloud side of things at phoenixNAP.
Absolutely. So the same email address, sales@phoenixNAP.com, or give us a call. I'll put that back up right there so you can write it down. The managed private cloud technologies, like I mentioned earlier, they truly give our customers that need a single tenant environment or have very robust custom requirements the ability to sit down with our engineering team, plan everything out from scratch, leverage different technologies than what we're able to deploy in a multi-tenant fashion. We've got managed private cloud customers doing all kinds of crazy things. Integrate it at a very deep level with technologies that they've already purchased. I think that's something that's very important as well, is to be able to say, maybe you already have a robust backup infrastructure product that you made an investment in, but your virtual and virtualization environment is struggling or needs a refresh. To be able to sit down and to be able to sit down with us and talk about how we can intermix those environments together, I think that you'll find that would be a very robust use of your time. And somebody had mentioned some questions in the studio chat as well, so I'll go ahead and try to address those real quick. There's a question about leveraging NSX and what level of access to NSX you have. That depends on which environment you're talking about. So as we look towards the data security cloud, we're leveraging literally the latest generation technologies from VMware and our other partners. And with that, and the very recent release of vCloud Director 9.0, we've finally been able to put a ton of NSX features, including micro-segmentation, in the hands of our multi-tenant customers. And so you would consume NSX via an HTML5 web portal. And today it's probably about 80% the way there in terms of feature parity with the standard NSX manager that you may be used to or may have researched about. In our single tenant environments, customers have full control over NSX manager. So you can we can sit down, work together to create policies, but we can operate those environments in a co-management fashion that give you access to the underlying infrastructure. Or if you really are just looking for these type of technologies in an OpEx consumption perspective and want us to stay out or only do certain things, we scope every single managed private cloud differently with its own responsibilities matrix so that customers understand exactly what we're doing on their behalf and what they are responsible for doing themselves. So there was also a question about, have we already started helping customers with this type of security? The answer is yes, right? So not only do we have a few marquee customers that are moving into this platform, as soon as it's ready, and we're going to talk to the world about that in some cases over the next few months. But we're already doing this every day. In fact, we have one of our customers on the call. I won't mention who it is, but they're a large internet startup, and we've deployed single-tenant private clouds for them. They also leverage our legacy infrastructure as a service products, and almost certainly will be migrating their multi-tenant applications over to the data security cloud once it's available for them. And we're taking technologies like NSX and we're deploying it on their behalf, and we're helping them manage that infrastructure both from a security perspective and from an infrastructure as a service perspective already. So another question was asked about kind of who we're targeting with the data security cloud. And that's a really great question because what we've talked about today is the start of a very long journey for our organizations, right? The partners that are listed at the bottom of the screen with Intel, VMware, phoenixNAP, and many others that we're working with already to try to provide different solutions are going to amalgamate into a product offering that has a few very key different bundles over time that will allow you to consume what you need to consume for your business to ensure that it's secure. And some people have investment criteria and needs that far exceed others. And we don't want to make consumption of our services so laborious and costly because we try to put every last security technology you would ever need in place for you. Instead, we want to be able to give you the things that you need to make sure that your business is secure to the perspective of your business objectives and what you're able to invest. So starting in late November, early December when this goes GA, what you can expect is something that is on par with what public cloud consumption looks like today. So if you go to a Microsoft Azure, use their calculator, and come up with a resource pool for your business of what you might need, you would find that our services for the base product of Data Security Cloud will be very close, within tens of % or less, and really try to understand what value you're getting for that, right? You're getting a PCI and HIPAA audited environment. You're getting a vSphere-based platform and all of the resiliencies that are built into that you've trusted for years, right? You're getting a hybrid flash storage platform, and you're getting technologies like NSX that are amazing. And to my partners on VMware, I'm very sorry, but amazing, but also amazingly expensive to consume independently. And so these types of technologies are put in your hands to help you revolutionize your network security. And come January and in May, we're going to talk about a ton of other things that we've been working on to help you secure different parts of your infrastructure and your applications going forward. And so we truly, today in our multi-tenant cloud services products, we have SMB to Fortune 1000. And we truly believe that that will continue even as we continue to layer in deeper security technologies. So this is not an enterprise-only, you can't consume it unless you can spend $20,000 a month type product. I think our base resource package is something like 25 vCPUs and 50 gigabytes of VRAM and 2 or 3 terabytes. So that'll give you an idea of how small of an infrastructure that can take advantage of this environment. Because it isn't, although it is designed for all-in usage, we also want to allow customers that just have maybe a specific application to be able to board it into this cloud offering, into the data security cloud, and leverage the things that we're doing behind the scenes just for that app. Maybe it's just one critical app. Even if it's a large company, we think that there's a lot of value to that. Let's see what else. I think that is it. And so unless there's anybody else, I'm going to go ahead and do that drawing. I know everyone's got to go. So let's go ahead and get that done. And my marketing team has come back and said, Dennis George from LVS1. So if you could, I'll have our marketing teams reach out to you at that email address, Dennis George, or George Dennis, depending on how your company puts their emails. And I look forward to, hopefully you enjoy that Kindle Paperwhite. This concludes our webinar on the phoenixNAP Data Security Cloud and how you can protect your business from the breaches that will inevitably occur if you choose not to. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, William. It was a pleasure learning from you today, and obviously very exciting to see the things phoenixNAP is working on, especially in this security space. So yes, thank you, and thank everyone else for joining us today.